Saludos a nuestros estudiantes en Ecuador. Greetings to our students in Scotland, and howdy to our students here in Houston. I'm Richard Hyde, I'm the British Consul General in Houston, and it's wonderful to be part of such a fantastic event here today. Now, I might be getting a little old, but when I get to talk to Rice University about space research, or when I get to visit NASA, to hear about the Artemis program and the return to the moon, I become a little child all over again. It's exciting stuff. You're so lucky today to be hearing from astronaut Kate Rubins. Now, did you know that Kate was the first person to sequence DNA in space? It's amazing to think that for every experiment that we run in space, it teaches us something new, something important, something fascinating about life here on Earth. Hopefully this is going to inspire you to think about this, to think about science as a future career. You never know, in future, you could be up there teaching all of us down here about the planet we live on. Have a great day.
My name is Rosalía Arteaga. I am former president of the Republic of Ecuador, and I had been also had some other positions like Minister of Education, and also I was a teacher, and I can understand the desires and the dreams of the students. I am happy that through the Space Society of Guayaquil we can do this and be together in this initiative with people from Scotland and from Houston. And it is great to think about a space like a free place where we can dream, see what's happening, understand the complexity of universe, and science, technology can help us. I am also sure that it will be the beginning of an agreement of joint efforts to do things together. My gratitude to the Space Center of Guayaquil, and also greetings to all the students, the teachers, the families, and the people of Scotland, Houston, and Ecuador.
Hello from Houston. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to today's live downlink from the International Space Station. As home to the NASA Johnson Space Center, Houston is known worldwide as Space City, but it is also known as one of the most international cities in the world, with connections across the globe. I would like to thank the Rice Space Institute for bringing together students from Houston, Scotland, and our sister city, Guayaquil, Ecuador, to engage in the important educational event. The wonders of space exploration inspire us, young and old, to think beyond our borders and ourselves, to seek new friends and new partnerships. Nothing exemplifies this more than the International Space Station, and Houston is proud to be home to many of the astronauts who take great risks to move humanity forward. You, the next generation of space explorers, scientists, and artists, are our future. Enjoy the event today, and remember the new friends you made.
Well, hello, good afternoon, buenos dias, bienvenidos, and welcome to Let's Talk Space, brought to you by the Rice Space Institute, Space Intelligence, and Connect.
Yes, welcome to everybody joining from Houston, Texas. Bienvenidos a todos en Ecuador. And hello to all the Scots, Brits, and world citizens here for this event. It's going to be out of this world.
Yeah, we're going to squeeze in all the space puns today. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is Dr. Murry Collins. I see you've all been using the chat box already, so please say hello in your own language and tell us where you are in the world. Also ask questions. Murray and I are live from Scotland, but we'll shortly be joined by a stellar lineup of guests from around the world and above it.
This event is the culmination of a lot of space networking, which started with Kim and I deciding to make a podcast this time last year called Edinburgh Space Data Capital. We invited Professor David Alexander, OBE, on as a guest, and we've become great friends ever since.
Yeah, we bonded over Iron Brew.
Oh, not that again.
Yeah, well, you see, David was born in Glasgow and now he works in Houston as the director of the Rice Space Institute at Rice University. And I'm also from Glasgow, so naturally I had to check that he could still get iron brew out in the States.
And then they spent ages talking about iron brew instead of rockets and satellites.
Yeah, well, and then I had to explain to the Englishmen here, and in fact, I should probably explain to the Ecuadorians as well. Iron brew es un tipo de bebida con gas que se fabrica en Escocia. Junto con whisky, es la bebida más popular en todo el país. Es de color naranja, pero tiene gusto a jengibre. Es algo especial.
KBN. So anyway, David was such a big supporter of our second podcast series called Scotland's Secret Space Race and our goal to broadcast from the International Space Station.
Yep, and Murray's desperate to go up one day, but in the meantime, David's friend Kate Rubins told him that she was on the next crew and she asked if he would like one of her downlinks. And I think she's only allowed 3 or 4.
And of course, Kim wanted the link for our podcast, which was a bit selfish, really.
Yeah, well, fair point. But David suggested we might want to go a wee bit bigger. So this is what we came up with, a 3-region project which lets school children ask astronauts questions for them to answer live on the space station.
And it was quite an undertaking, as you can imagine, to gather questions from Scotland, Guayaquil and Houston, pass them over to NASA and then hope that they could schedule in the time with the space station crew. But we did it, and at 3:15, they will broadcast live from the International Space Station.
Oh, I can't wait. And under normal circumstances, obviously, we would gather in a big auditorium, we'd have a big party, but, you know, this is the next best thing under COVID restrictions. We've got 3 more astronauts joining us, along with some extremely high-level space experts. And Murray.
Thanks, Kim. I can always count on your support.
Absolutely. Oh, no, I'm just teasing. Murray is, in fact, the space lead at Edinburgh University, and he's also the chief executive of a space data company called Space Intelligence. You could say he puts the universe in university. Bueno, tengo que decir que David Alexander ha organizado la mayoría de ese evento y vamos a tener 3 astronautas y expertos que van a hablar juntos más tarde. El enlace desde la estación espacial comienza en 1 hora y 5 minutos, más o menos.
Fantastic. So enough from us. You came here to hear some astronauts, and we're going to begin with Bonnie Dunbar, veteran of no less than 5 space flights, who Kim spoke to earlier.
Thank you so much for joining us here at the Watch Party. We are so excited to have you. What has it like being an astronaut for your career?
Well, for me, it was actually a dream come true, because I started looking at the stars when I was very small. 9 years old is when I could remember my earliest interest in the stars and space flight.
And you've been 5 times to the space station.
Yes.
Talk us through
5 times in orbit, yeah.
Okay, 5 times in orbit. So talk us through that first time you left the Earth. How did that feel?
Well, it was the culmination of a long training flow. I'd been training for that particular mission for 18 months. It was a joint mission with West Germany, as a matter of fact. We had 8 crew members on the flight, 5 Americans, 2 from Germany, and 1 from Holland, Guayaquil. And so you're very focused on the mission, right? People always say, well, were you excited during launch? Well, I was focused on launch. You know, I had a job to do. I had displays to look at. And certainly you're conscious of the fact that you need to be focused, just like being an airline pilot, right? When you fly from point to point, you want your pilot focused on flying the airplane, right? But I had a few opportunities during the mission when I was looking out the window to really just soak it all in. Orbiting the Earth once every 90 minutes. The orbit shifts, as the Earth revolves around you. You're just orbiting one place in inertial space, so it's the Earth kind of shifting. So every orbit you're moving a few degrees over. So eventually you get to see the whole Earth, and it's really quite exciting.
It must be so beautiful seeing the Earth from above. It gives you such perspective, I imagine.
Yeah, just like the one behind me.
It's almost like you're doing it right now.
Well,
and sorry, I was going to say you have some links with Scotland. Could you tell us about those?
Well, yes. My last name is Dunbar, and that I've inherited from my my father and my grandfather. My grandfather immigrated from Dundee, Scotland when he was about 19. Came through Ellis Island, worked for, he barely had anything in his pocket. He was looking for new opportunities. And so he actually trained horses for a year in New York, made enough money to get on a train, and ended up in Condon, Oregon, which is where he actually homesteaded and where my father grew up. He met my mother in Portland, Oregon, at a baseball game, if you can believe this, I think in about 1908 or something. And she had immigrated separately as a young woman, 24-year-old woman from Gardenston on the North Sea there in Hampshire with another family. So they'd come through Canada, and then she'd immigrated through the northern border of Washington State. And so I have that heritage, of on my father's side of and my grandfather's side of being very Scottish. And he lived till he was 93 and was a big influence on me. And although he only graduated from high school, no one in my family had been to a university, they were strong believers in education. And so my grandfather was a fan of Bobby Burns, and he wrote me the entire time I was in the university in rhyme. So not having attended university doesn't mean you're not educated. We had books and we learned to read at a very early age.
What a wonderful story. I love that he was the adventurer of the new world and now you're the adventurer into space.
Well, I often think that he was the more adventuresome because you have to remember he bought a one-way ticket.
Wow.
And even the steerage of a ship going to a land he's only heard about. And of course, in those days, and still he needed to be sponsored. So there was another Scottish family that was in New York that was, sponsoring his entry into the country. So there were little Scottish enclaves. So Condon, Oregon was a little Scottish town. They still celebrate Bobby Burns's supper every year. And I go back to visit when I can.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we have a poem from Scotland as part of this event celebrating Bobby Burns, so that seems entirely appropriate. And what do you think about this event today, the fact that we are going to allow school children to ask questions of astronauts?
Well, I think it's wonderful. We've done that from the very beginning. All astronauts, we were children ourselves once, right? And in the early days, and I do remember when Sputnik was launched and Alan Shepard and John Glenn, there wasn't always that opportunity for two-way conversation, but certainly there were always speeches from space about inspiration and education. And so on the shuttle, we made a point of trying to provide for two-way conversation. Now, in the early days, on those early shuttle flights, we were kind of restricted on communication. We could talk down, but didn't always hear them unless we had a ham radio. So in one of my flights, it was mission control that was getting all the questions and reading them up to us. And one of them actually came from my great aunt Annie in Gardenston.
No
way. And the question was, and she was actually blind. She did it through, I think, a second cousin. The question was, could I see the lights of Aberdeen?
Oh, and could you?
Actually, on those particular orbits, yes, it was a high inclination mission. And that was kind of exciting for me that a relative of mine in Scotland could find their way with a question through mission control.
That's absolutely incredible. And the advances now that, potentially the astronauts will actually see the videos as well, not just hear the questions, see the children and see the wonder in their faces. So it's so exciting. And you're obviously a teacher yourself. I mean, what kind of questions do you get? What kind of inspiration do you find the children looking for?
Well, I'm teaching older children now. I'm a university professor, but I still try to do as much what we call K through 12 outreach as much as possible to answer the questions that aren't in the textbooks, to answer the questions that maybe the teachers don't have the resources for, but primarily to help young people understand that they have the key within themselves to achieve what they want to achieve. It's all about learning and education. I go back to the messages from my parents and from my grandfather who lived with us for a while. He used to tell me that the most important possession you have is knowledge. No one can take it from you. We were relatively poor. That's how the government classified us on our farm, because we were self-sufficient. But I never felt poor. And when I wanted to travel, I read books. You know, I read books about exploration and National Geographic and space. You know, I wanted to explore space. But I think that was very important, is that that's what the human achievement is all about, is the acquisition of knowledge and then using that knowledge and not building your own fences. That was something my grandfather and my father used to say, you know, don't say I can't, that's your own fence. Other people might say you can't, and then you find another gate, but don't build your own fences.
Yeah. And one of those fences, I guess, is don't feel like you can't do it because of where you've been born in the world. You know, we have children from Ecuador, Scotland, and Houston. You might assume the children in Houston have an easier path to it, but that's not the case, is it?
No, you have to remember, even in the United States, when I was growing up, 50% of the population were like me, rural, you know, and I was first in my family to go to the university. That didn't mean that the rest of my family was ignorant and uneducated. Hardly. We were self-educated. You run a farm, you do everything. You know, a ranch, you're the veterinarian, you're the business owner, you're all of those things. So everyone has that potential. It is how much effort are you going to put into acquiring the knowledge and working for it?
Yeah, well, this has been wonderful chatting with you, Bonnie. Thank you so much. And who knows, a future Bonnie Dunbar could be in the audience today. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for doing this, and my very best to all the students who are listening.
Well, I hope you agree that was wonderful to hear from Bonnie Dunbar there. And I reckon we can almost claim her as Scottish. Just fantastic to hear from her. I'm now joined by those space experts, I promised. Joined by Lord David Willetts from the House of Lords, who is the Minister of State for Universities and Science and who affected many of the UK's space laws. Good afternoon, Lord Willetts.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We also have Robert Allion desde Ecuador, President of the Guayaquil Space Society. Buenos dias, Robert.
Muy buenos dias. Hello, everybody. So glad to be here.
Great. And hopefully David Alexander's managed to find us. I can hear you echoing, David. I'm not sure if you're... Yeah, we'll keep trying with David. And Murray, who I mentioned before, Chief Executive of Space Intelligence and Space Lead at the University. Hey again, Murray.
Hi, Kim.
So we have all these wonderful experts here. You've been asking lots of questions in the text box. Please keep them coming and I'll try to ask them all on your behalf. I'm going to start by asking Lord Willetts, is it true that you helped get Team Peak onto the space station?
Well, it is true in a way. For a long time, Britain didn't believe that we should have manned missions to the space station. And the view was we specialize in other things. We didn't do that. And when I was a minister, I thought we should change the policy because going up to the space station is just so exciting. I thought it would really show we were serious about space and space science. And it's also useful. Astronauts up there do really important experiments. And Tim had already been in training, but he wasn't guaranteed a flight. And we had a great negotiation and he got his flight and he's been a wonderful ambassador for space ever since. And he's a great guy.
He sure is, yeah. And a great example of a Brit in space, although we are all Europeans under the European Space Agency, right?
Yeah, and we contribute. The European Space Agency is completely separate from the European Union. So thank heavens we're still in the European Space Agency and very, very active in partnership with France and Germany and the other members.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've had loads of questions coming in, so I'm going to try and get through as many as I possibly can. So I'd like to know what is the motion of going into space like? Can anyone describe that? Murray, you dream about it. What would you reckon the motion of going into space would be like?
Well, actually, through this podcast series, I've had the very great pleasure to speak to a number of astronauts. So I understand it to be actually incredibly exciting. You're strapping yourself effectively to a firework and then propelling yourself into orbit. So there's these 8.5 minutes of extreme energy as you're propelling yourself off the surface of the Earth and then into the darkness of space. And so what we've heard from the astronauts we've spoken to is that it's very, very exciting. But as Bonnie explained, you have to be focused on the task at hand. So a lot going on, a lot of energy, a lot of sensory overload, but you have to maintain your focus on flying the vehicle into space. I'm sure David's probably had a tale or two as well.
Yeah, David, I'm really pleased you've managed to join us. So thank you for coming along today and for making so much of this possible. Let's just check your accent. You're not too Texan these days, are you?
Hopefully you can hear me now. So I missed some of the questions. I did log off and come back in again. So if you can hear me, maybe you can repeat the question. I heard Murray talk about the launch aspects. Yep. That's the two scariest parts of launch and re-entry. And I think we're going to hear, I think some of the questions focus on some of that aspect. So I think we're going to hear from at least Kate, maybe Shannon, and certainly Serena about that experience. I've only experienced it in a joyride in Huntsville, Alabama, so I don't think that counts.
I don't think you should be telling us about your joyriding experiences, David.
Well, it was at a science museum. I should clarify that. It was at a science museum where they strapped you in some seats and pretended to take you to Mars. So, wow. And then we did have a drop zone ride in Houston one time where they did virtual reality and then drop, one of those drop rides, where they let you go from a height. Yeah. But they had virtual reality plugged in. So that's about as close as I'll get, I think.
And you are an astrophysicist, which I find just astonishing that the stuff you work on, it just blows my mind. And one of the questions we've just had in is, how fast does a meteor go? Are you able to answer that?
Well, they go at different speeds, and part of the, one of the things that we worry about when we look at these things called near-Earth asteroids, and we're worried that the kind of event that killed off the dinosaurs, we kind of still worry about those. Luckily, those events are very rare, but so a lot of it is just basic kinetic energy and how fast they're moving. But we're really talking anywhere up to maybe 40,000 kilometers, and I get my units wrong here, but 40,000 kilometers an hour at least, and something faster than that. So what you're seeing as a meteor is basically a small, maybe even a speck of dust, but the small particles, which makes for a pretty light show, but doesn't cause us any concern for, life-threatening or anything. But they do actually impact the space station too, and that's one of the concerns. The space station's moving at 17,500 miles an hour, and they're running into some of these things all the time, and so you can see these little pock marks on the outside of the space station.
Wow, that must feel pretty scary if you're on board and something hits you.
They have to move the space station when it's in danger of a collision with space debris. Indeed, recently they had to move it because of one of the SpaceX mesh satellites that Elon Musk had launched. They have to move, and the users have a bit of power every time.
Wow, gosh. So yeah, so they're at the mercy of many dangers up there, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that. We've had lots of questions about Saturn and Uranus as well. I wonder, David, maybe you're best to answer the deep space stuff. Which one of Jupiter's moons might have life?
Well, I did actually respond to that in the text, but there's a mission developed right now, one of the sisters in California, called the Europa Clipper. And there's a number of what we call icy moons around Jupiter and Saturn in particular that they're called icy moons for a reason, right? They have ice, and so they have water. What's interesting about Europa is that we think that it actually has a liquid ocean underneath a 40-kilometer covering of ice, because it's very cold out there. So it's, you're way below freezing. But because of the pressures and the protection of this ice cover, we're pretty sure, because we see plumes coming out, we see water vapor coming out of fractures in the surface. And so there's a mission designed to go look for that. The first mission is going to be an orbiter to kind of get the lay of the land. And then the next mission will maybe do a lander and use some technology to drill through the ice. And maybe there'll be some microbes that we can find. We like liquid water when we're thinking about life elsewhere. So that'll be exciting. It'll be a few years yet. And then I think it's like a 7-year trip, because Jupiter's quite far away.
Quite far away. And now I'm going to ask a question in Spanish, because...
But there's definitely our search and our efforts in trying to find that answer. So we have to work hard at it, and hopefully the students here can be involved in that process of learning and pursuing that knowledge.
Be almost as scary for there not to be any other life than for there to be some life. It's a great question to answer either way. And Lord Willetts, there's been lots of questions about the training that you need to do as an astronaut, the possibility for people in Britain who are looking to be an astronaut when they grow up. What are their possibilities?
Yeah, well, the way to do it is to apply to the European Space Agency. They run the European end of access to the International Space Station. Tim himself had got history and training and expertise as having been a helicopter pilot in the British Army, and so he'd got military experience, but there are other backgrounds as well, and you can apply through the UK Space Agency to the European Space Agency, and they're a wonderful group of people. They are so skilled in so many different things. They often have a science and technology background, of course, which is a great route in, and it's incredibly exciting. I might just say, by the way, that having seen Tim's launch by North, you can now at the Science Museum in London see the actual Soyuz capsule he was in. And for me as a layperson, what interests me about it is actually quite an old technology. This Russian technology has been around for a long time. The Russians are very practical. It works, so they haven't massively changed it, but you can see it in the Science Museum.
Excellent. But you know, if you want to work in space, you don't just need to be an astronaut, do you, Murray? What other opportunities are there for kids who want to work in the space sector?
No, indeed. It's a rapidly going sector around the world, and it's predicted to be worth £400 billion by 2030. So there's going to be a huge range of jobs in countries around the world, ranging from engineers building rocket systems. But what we see here in Edinburgh is a lot of data analytics. So the data which comes down from satellites, you need a lot of expertise in image processing and in computer programming to be able to understand those images, those signals which come down from space. So our company, Space Intelligence, we analyze satellite data which looks at forests. And so we're always keen, and in fact, we're hiring for a junior developer at the moment. We're looking for people with programming skills in Python and R. They're able to analyze data sets and produce useful information. So I think people with technical expertise, particularly good at computer programming, are going to be in much demand in the future.
Definitely. Lots of jobs across the UK, across Houston, across Ecuador. You don't just need to be an astronaut to work in space. And Lord Willetts, you were telling me a brilliant story about some of the traditions that astronauts go through, that they're very highly trained individuals, obviously, but they also have some strange habits, don't they?
Yeah, yeah. And this is a true story. So, by the way, this week is the 60th anniversary of Yuri Gagarin flying from Baikonur on the very first mission into space. And many of the Tim Peake was launched from Baikonur as well, and they take the same route to the same launch pad as Yuri Gagarin did 60 years ago. And 60 years ago, he stopped and got out of his vehicle and had his last pee before he got back into the vehicle and was put into the rocket. And they all now, by tradition, stop and do a wee at roughly the same place where Yuri Gagarin did, and then all get back in and keep on going. So even these scientists also have their superstitions as well.
I love that. You've got to be a little bit superstitious if you're going to, as Murray says, strap yourself to a firework and launch yourself into space. And part of this project that we have here today is building links between the three regions. David, it's kind of your brainchild. Could you tell us a little bit about what you would like us to achieve now that we're all here together?
I think this is a great medium like for these kind of conversations to bring people together, because it requires a range of different skills. It requires not just the science and engineering, but the communication skills and the visionary skills and the application skills that tailor the data that Murray was talking about. it's also an expensive proposition, and the more we work together, the more that nations work together. You know, the International Space Station is a fantastic example of how countries can come together and create something quite spectacular. When I first started the idea here, you know, we had visited Mar College in Prestwick with Dr. Philippa Whitford, who is an MP for Central Ayrshire there. And the idea was to try and connect schools in Houston and Scotland around space-related projects. And, you know, as you can imagine, that's quite challenging. Teachers have enough to do with someone like me coming in to get more. But we started the conversation, and then, of course, COVID hit, and that kind of put the kibosh on it. But we were able to, through Kate and Dr. Rubins' suggestion of using, and actually this is her only live downlink. So I think we're quite privileged to have this connection today. But that gave us the opportunity to bring this up. And ideally, we were going to be doing projects in the lead up to today with the different schools in the 3 countries. And again, with schools not you know, being open around the world because of COVID, we had to kind of put the lid on that. So what I'm really hoping is that the kind of excitement that this is bringing will allow us to go back to that idea and think about how we can do some of these education again, and the teachers are aware of what's available to them, and the students are always excited about space. Hopefully we can move forward from this and maybe think of some joint projects, ultimately exchanges of students and so on. That's my pipe dream at the moment, but it's going to take a lot of work to make that happen.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And Robert, one more question en español, por favor, es sobre la comida. ¿Y qué hay en la estación espacial para comida?
Es muy interesante porque realmente el tema de la comida es complicado transportarla y llevarla. Hay unos procesos donde la comida se le pone agua para que se pueda hidratar nuevamente y poderla comer. Pero de todas formas, sí se les permite a los astronautas tener ciertas cosas especiales. Una cosa que me dijeron que les gustaba bastante a los astronautas es el cóctel de camarones, el ceviche. Ellos lo hacen de una manera diferente en Estados Unidos, pero sí lo comen y les gusta bastante con la salsa roja. Entonces, eso es un plato ecuatoriano que deberíamos realmente impulsarlo más en el tema espacial. One of the main exports from Ecuador is shrimp, and one of the things that I was told by the NASA JSC folks is that shrimp cocktail is one of their favorite fruits from astronauts. So that's a good link that we could definitely promote there about the use of shrimp in space.
Yeah, it must be lovely having shrimp in space. I imagined it would all be sort of vacuum packed, but no, I think they managed to do quite a lot up there from what I know. We've had so many questions about out of space as well, you know, planets and probes. Could we have a word on Mars? I mean, Lord Willetts, is this a priority for the UK, exploring Mars, and what kind of experiments are going on there?
Yeah, I mean, the UK has got a role in the missions. Of course, there's the NASA mission there at the moment, and there'll be a European mission as well. And actually, the Mars rover vehicle on the European mission was largely developed in the UK. So we do have a role on that. There's British technology is now an important part of what happens in space. In fact, they've just installed as well on the space.
Oh no, we've just lost him right in the middle of his answer. Also, we have a fantastic astrobiologist in Scotland who is doing some amazing experiments on the International Space Station to find out if life is possible on Mars. So yeah, we're just trying to drive home the fact that you don't have to live in Houston, Texas, where David Alexander is, to work in space. There's plenty going on all across the world. Oh, hopefully that's Lord Willetts back with us. Did you manage to rejoin, Lord Willetts? I'm sorry, we lost you right in the middle of your answer there.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry about that. I lost contact. But yeah, I was saying that.
Kim, I think you're saying to me, I apologize if I'm talking, and so I couldn't quite hear. Well, you have to go to my audio point.
Oh, no worries, David. Sorry, Lord Willetts. Could you carry on with the question about Mars?
Oh yeah, I was just saying that, you know, we've got we're making in Britain a key part of the Mars rover vehicle that will be on the European mission. We just installed the antenna on the International Space Station, and we want to work with America on putting a communication satellite around the moon for all the different lunar missions. So yeah, all this is happening, and the future is to have, I think, a permanent base on the moon, and to have, I think, certainly in the lifetimes of the students watching this program, we'll get to Mars and have people on Mars.
Wonderful, something fabulous to look forward to. Yes, in our lifetime we will. We'll see more exploration of Mars. Well, as lovely as it would be to chat all day, we have a lot to get through in our programme. So for just now, thank you very much to our panellists, Lord Willetts, David Alexander, Robert Auñón, and Murray, who's going to join us back shortly as well. Thank you all very much. And obviously a big part of this whole project is building relationships between the regions of Houston and Guayaquil and Scotland. And hopefully one day soon we will be able to meet in person. But for now, here's just a little taste of the cultures from each place.
Hay un lugar en el centro del mundo, en donde el río se junta con el mar, en donde las horas se hacen minutos y sientes que allí te quieres quedar. Es aquella perla que brilla en la noche, llena de jarana y de amistad, un calor humano que te funde el alma con nuevos amigos de verdad. Déjame llevarte por el manso río, el eco de la brisa te regala una sonrisa y el viento gritará, ¡bienvenido a Guayaquil! Soy Maximiliano Castañeda, alumna del Liceo Panamericano. Saludos desde Guayaquil.
Hi, my name is Millie, and I'm going to be reciting the Robert Burns poem, A Red, Red Rose. All my love's like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. All my love's like a melody that's sweetly played in tune. As fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry. Till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun. And I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands o' life shall run. And fare thee weel, my only love, and fare thee weel a while, and I will come again, my love, though it were 10,000 mile.
Skyline of mine. My heart beats along to the foot traffic of downtown. Sidewalks guide me to my potential. Skyscrapers point me to my limitless limits. I hold my head high cause I'm H-Town bound. Our culture so influential paints a beautiful, diverse image. My city sparks hope. My city gives light. My city's my only home. Locally made, my city's my birthright. I've seen fireworks out my window. I've watched the American dream. I've seen thunder out my window. I've watched flooded gloom drain back to gleam. Houston strong, we rebuilt our legacy. Brick by brick, we regenerated our home. The days were long and dark in Hurricane Harvey. Houston hope doesn't drown, it floats. The days were long and dark last month when Texas snow turned to power gone. But lo and behold, we don't give up. With our Houston strength, we recharge. Dressed to impress, my home is the most diverse in the nation. Beyonce blessed, my home is the heart of aspiration. The art is in the artist, the food is in the cook, the singer is in the song, and the author is in the book. It's the people who make the place worth praising. The culture makes the place so amazing. What they got on our Tex-Mex, what they got on our barbecue. We got that country, classy, hip-hop dress. We got our city lights and forest bayous. Who says you can't see stars in the city? They're coming down the highway, they're running in the park. Who says stars don't shine as bright in the city? In Houston, Space City nickname, we can see stars in the light and in the dark. Houston, we have a problem. The hearts here are bigger than the buildings. Houston, we have a problem. The minds here keep shattering the glass ceilings. Travis Scott and my grandma know what I mean. Scott came from the city knowing it'd make him a star. My nana worked here at NASA knowing that outer space was as big as our city's heart. They both taught me about having pride, and I'm so proud to live under this skyline of mine.
And as you know, we've got three sponsors today. The first being Connect Communications, who worked with the Rice Space Institute to pull together this fantastic event. So congratulations to Kim and the team for doing that. As for myself, it's been a great pleasure as Chief Executive of Space Intelligence to support such a wonderful event. What we do at Space Intelligence is support forest conservation around the world by applying artificial intelligence to analyze satellite data. And it's a great pleasure to be involved. But first and foremost, a huge thanks and congratulations to the Rice Space Institute and to Professor David Alexander for pulling this all together. So congratulations, David and team. We're going to hear a little bit more now about the Rice Space Institute, and there's a video to watch. So over to the Rice Space Institute.
We meet at a college noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted for strength. And we stand in need of all three. For we meet in an hour of change and challenge, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. The greater our knowledge increases, the greater our ignorance unfolds.
Hi, I am Fernando Aguirre Palacios, District Governor of Rotary International, Ecuador. We are so delighted that Guayaquil Space Society has gone through a joint opportunity, a beautiful initiative to join Scotland and Houston. Rotary is a believer in this team organization, so we are delighted that the students can join with people of science. And a warm hello to NASA and the astronauts in the International Space Station.
Greetings from Rice University on this important occasion of the downlink from the International Space Station with students from Scotland and Ecuador and right here in Houston, Texas. This is a great event, and I want to thank astronaut Kate Rubins and others, and NASA, and David Alexander, and the Rice Space Institute. Space plays an important role for all of us on planet Earth, and has been especially important for the city of Houston, Texas, and Rice University. Indeed, Rice played a role in providing the land on which the Johnson Space Center now sits outside Houston. And we played an important role in the science that made possible the voyage to the moon. And we continue to provide scientific experiments in space exploration today. Almost 60 years ago, President Kennedy came to Rice University and spoke in our stadium about going to the moon. And he posed the question, he said, why choose the moon? Why cross the Atlantic? Why climb the highest mountain? Why does Rice play Texas? And he answered the question by saying, we choose to do these things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. And then went on to say that the benefits from going to space really include new knowledge and new tools and new ways of organizing human endeavor, and that those benefits must be shared for all mankind. That was the vision that President Kennedy set forth in the fall of 1962. And that is what continues today. We're proud of the astronauts from all countries, all over the world, who have participated in the exploration of space. And we fervently hope that it will continue to be a place for international collaboration and cooperation. And I hope the young students listening today, some of them at least, will set their aspirations to contribute to that adventure. And whether that's here on the ground as scientists or perhaps becoming astronauts themselves. So once more, I want to welcome all of you to this important occasion, a chance to interact with those on the International Space Station, to learn what's going on there, and to raise all of our aspirations. What President K said, in order to achieve this, we must be bold. And so I wish all of you, our students, boldness in your futures, as you stake out your own aspirations and own careers. Thank you so much for joining on this occasion today.
Hi to all, my name is Yvonne Baki. I was born in Guayaquil and I'm the Ambassador of Ecuador to the United States. I would like to commend the initiative to create the Guayaquil Space Society, which is bringing together the communities of Houston, Guayaquil, and Scotland. As you know, if we see our planet from outer space, we cannot see any border. We have one planet that has to be shared by all the people. The same should be applied to space. It is a limitless environment that belongs to everyone and must be a place that unites people. Being this the objective of the Guayaquil Space Society, I wish that the collaboration of this new organization with its counterparts around the world would support the realization of the all dream of humanity, that the space is accessible to all. I take advantage of this opportunity to send my best regards to the astronauts at the International Space Station. Thank you very much.
Well, that was fantastic to hear from the people at Rice, but also our friends in Ecuador. And I'm hoping now I'm going to be joined by an astronaut live. So, Greg, do I have you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. It's fantastic to be connected with you. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is the first time I've used this application. So I was looking around here. It's very comprehensive.
It is indeed. Well, we're live. That's great to make this connection, and we've got a whole host of questions which are coming through, largely relating to the experience of launching yourself into space and what it's like in space. So why don't we start from the beginning? If you're a veteran of multiple space missions and also a fighter pilot, would you mind just giving yourself a brief introduction and telling the audience what your experience is?
Well, it started off, when we talked earlier this week, it started off actually in the UK. My dad was in the US military as a musician. So I'm a military brat, Air Force brat. Ended up going to the Air Force Academy and started flying airplanes for the Air Force. Went into fighters and then in the test pilot business and joined the astronaut corps in 1998. So a couple decades ago. And then got to fly on 2 space shuttle missions, STS-123 and 134.
Fantastic. And so a lot of the questions which have come in from the chat have related to training and how to become an astronaut and how to learn to fly. So what kind of tips would you give somebody who's watching, who's quite a lot younger and who's thinking about an exciting career as an astronaut?
Well, when I was going into the program, there were the pilot astronauts, and then there were the smart ones. And so I'm just kidding. So you could be a pilot going through the military.
Just interrupt you very quickly. Sorry. Can you turn your camera on? Actually, Greg, you should see a green circle next to the microphone on the at the top of the page.
Okay, there you go.
There you are.
Sorry.
Fantastic.
All right,
we've got you.
We've got it now. Okay, there we go. Sorry about the lighting. Okay, but so there are 2 kinds of astronauts: the pilots and the smart ones. And obviously, I was a pilot because I didn't know how to turn my camera on. But no, really, the pilots were professional aviators, mostly from the Navy and the Air Force, and also from some of the other services. And the mission specialists really specialized in just about anything in a STEM-related field and education and medicine as well. And so in the shuttle days, the pilots were assigned to operate the ship, and then the mission specialists were the ones who generally did the spacewalks and performed the science and technology development on the space shuttle and the space station. So there were really 2 sort of paths when I was applying 20 years ago. It was going through the military pilot track, test pilot track, or the scientists or the more generalists who were accepted as mission specialists. Now, all of those disciplines have kind of merged together as we have these new crews that we're putting together on the International Space Station. And so many of the occupants of the International Space Station have multi-talents. They're good in science, but also good in operational activities like flying things and robotics. So preparing for being an astronaut, I think the most important thing is to do what you love and not necessarily pick a discipline that you think is going to lead you to the astronaut corps, but more do what really excites you. So you can get up in the morning and it's not really work. It's always play. I've always loved the jobs that I've had along the way. And I think that you'll do better in a job if you wake up and it's not work. It's play. It's what excites you.
And on that theme of excitement, when we've spoken previously, maybe we could talk a bit about the excitement of strapping yourself to a huge firework and firing yourself up into space. Many of the people online here, the over 1,000 people have joined us now live for this. They want to know, what is that experience like? What's launch like?
Well, first of all, I was just amazed to be there. I wanted to be an astronaut since I was 7 years old. And now it's like 40 years later, I'm finally getting to go to space. So it was a dream come true. I was really excited. I had anticipation a little bit because I knew of the risks that were about to happen. I didn't know what it was going to look like, because you can train in simulators, high fidelity simulators all around the country and the world, but you just can't simulate a launch. And so when the solid rocket boosters lit, it just lit up the Florida coast and we leaped off the ground like a wild animal. It was sensory overload, vibration, sound, light. And since it was at night, we had a thin overcast deck that was illuminated by the bright solid rocket boosters. And it was like flying through a wall of fire. I mean, it was an incredible experience. I can't hardly use the right words to describe it. And then once we popped through that thin cloud deck, about 10 seconds later, it was completely dark and amazing as we accelerated toward 17,500 miles an hour for about 8 minutes. Unbelievable.
That sounds like quite an incredible experience. And so what's the transition like as you hit space and you start to lose the gravitational pull on your body? Could you describe to the audience what that feels like?
Well, at the moment of main engine cutoff, I laughed hysterically for like 10 seconds because you go instantly from 3 G's acceleration to poof, you're floating in space. What's interesting on the shuttle is a few seconds after main engine cutoff, we separated from the external tank. And because it was at night, and also because we had a malfunction that took away 6 of our RCS jets, we had this really long external tank release. And that RCS jets, the reaction control system jets, are firing boom, 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 boom in all directions. And it was balls of fire flying away from us. It was like being inside of a firework. It was amazing. But once that was over, once that excitement was over and everybody got their wits back, it was just really fun and serene, floating in outer space and looking at our beautiful planet for the first time. Unbelievable.
And then that was something which was reflected there by Bonnie Dunbar, just the beauty of looking down on Earth. And so did that experience change your perspective on being an Earthling?
I think it changes every astronaut's perspective. I hope that scores and scores and tens and thousands and tens of thousands of people get to go up to outer space in the next upcoming generations, because you really get a sense of how beautiful our planet is, how we're all globally interconnected. You're looking at this beautiful place and we're going around the Earth every 90 minutes. So you can see all the beautiful lands around the world and they're all populated by people. We're just all occupying this wonderful place. And it just underscores the importance of taking care of each other and taking care of our planet.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the main uses, at least for Earth observing satellites, is looking down and monitoring environmental systems. But so let's think about the experience again. And you talked about some of the skills you might want to have to become an astronaut. What about this aspect of teamwork? Because we're describing things that you would do as an individual, but this is very much a teamwork experience.
It's very much a teamwork exercise on a lot of levels. As far as the crew itself, when you live up on the International Space Station, it's a lot like going on a scouting camp trip or, you know, a backpacking expedition.
A slightly more extreme one.
It's a little bit extreme, but you're doing the same sorts of things. You're taking care of each other. You're looking after your gear. You're lending a hand. You're being part of a team, but that team is part of a much bigger team on the surface of the planet and mission control and all of the mission controls and all around the world that are contributing and tracking and backing up and watching these missions unfold.
Okay. Well, that's a really important thing for the audience watching as they think about the kind of skills they should develop and the way they should develop themselves. So teamwork and those strong science subjects are things that you should aspire to, as long as it excites you and it's something you feel genuinely passionate about. Okay, so if we could go back to that experience of being in space, we've got some questions around like the actual equipment and the day-to-day experience. So someone wants to know how heavy, for instance, the spacesuit is that you wear, and is that a cumbersome thing for you to deal with?
Okay, so I never got to do a spacewalk, but there were 5 spacewalks on my first shuttle flight and 4 on the second one. So I have a pretty good feel for the equipment and the activity. And I, of course, supported them all using the robotic arm and feeding them when they came back after that very arduous spacewalk, or those arduous spacewalks. I think the suit weighs about 400 pounds on the Earth. Of course, it doesn't weigh much in zero gravity. It's pretty bulky, but it's self-contained. It's like a mini spaceship. So when the astronauts go out the airlock, they literally have their water and their oxygen and some lower pressure around their bodies, executing the spacewalks on the outside of the shuttle or the space station.
Okay, and so it's something that presumably is going to be refined with new technologies in the future. If you have one of the members of the audience here going into in space into the future, there's new technologies that they'll be using. So I know that that's something that you're working on, the technologies for space exploration in the future. We have some fantastic.
Makes me want to dance. I hear that music.
Well, Greg, here's an opportunity to see can astronauts dance. Well, I think. I'm assuming this is a dial-in from Ecuador from the style of music. But we got to see an astronaut dance, which is something I hadn't been expecting. But that was fantastic. But let's think about the future then, because these new technologies maybe that you're working on some new technologies to land people on the moon at the moment. Could we talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So in the last couple of years, NASA and the United States has set course on going back to the moon by 2024. That was a very short notice kind of project. And so 5 companies started building, 5 groups of companies started building human landing systems to get us to the moon. And now there's 3 in the competition, and it's probably going to go down to 1 or 2 here in just the next few weeks. But I'm on a team that is comprised of Blue Origin, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Draper, and a few other partners, putting together what we call the National Team Human Landing System. And with Lockheed, I'm working on the asset element, which is the portion that the astronauts will be living in, and I'm working closely with the integration of crew and also thinking about how we're going to train the crew in the years to come to be ready for that mission. So it's really exciting, and the design is changing so fast. You know, Lockheed Martin is a very well-established big aerospace company. I have never seen a huge company like this move so fast with the design, but it's by nature. You know, SpaceX is in the competition. Of course, Blue Origin is a fast moving space company as well, and Lockheed Martin is keeping pace, and it's really fun every day.
Yeah, it does sound fantastic, and we are in really a space race, I suppose, aren't we? We have these plans to go and visit Mars. Could you talk a little bit about your vision of the future, so maybe the next generation or 2 of space explorers? What kind of universe will they be operating in? I think David Alexander had mentioned a permanent base on the moon, for instance, and Lord Willetts, I think, had mentioned that. What about the next sort of 100 years? What do you see us doing in space?
Well, just what they said, and to build on that, we have the International Space Station that's been in low Earth orbit for 20 years now with human presence. And there need to be similar space stations around the moon and perhaps around Mars. And then, like you said, colonies on the surface of the moon and on Mars, and perhaps spaceports on some of these celestial bodies that are used for the connection, and I would envision they'll be all interconnected by some sort of master air traffic control, space traffic control. It's going to be really exciting. If you think about the National Airspace System and how it evolved with airplanes here on the Earth, we're going to do the same sorts of things in space in generations to come.
I know that's an incredible thought, and it's something you raised previously, is that we haven't even, as a species, we haven't really been able to have powered flight for very long, and now we're exploring space. So what is that, 100 odd years we've been able to have had flight, and now we're exploring these deep regions of space. It's incredibly exciting. So big questions then. A lot of them, we've got this feed of questions which are coming through, and I think a lot of people really want to know, what's the journey? Obviously, you've talked about your journey. What do you think the journey will be like for somebody who's in high school right now, or possibly even younger? What kind of things should they be doing, and how should they develop themselves in order to become an astronaut? Maybe sort of the top three things.
Well, the top three things are being curious and learning across the board, not focusing on one activity, because there are not a lot of astronauts right now, we wear a lot of hats. So having, operational and scientific and engineering skills will be helpful. The second thing is, don't check boxes. Learn what you can. Go to those courses and ask questions, be curious, make connections. And then finally, I'd say, practice being part of a bigger team, because all space flight right now is a big team. And so learning how to interact and the soft skills associated with interacting with team members, accepting team members for the skills they bring, and loving them for their eccentric qualities, because we all have them. And I'm going to say a fourth one, and the fourth one is do what you love. I can't underscore that more than any other point, is do what you love. Don't do what you think is going to make you an astronaut. Do do your passions, and your passions will lead you to space in some fashion, because all different kinds of people are needed to go in outer space in the future.
I think that's a fantastic and really inspiring message, actually, because we have this fantastic audience here and this incredible opportunity to speak to people live in space. And so we've got another sort of 30 seconds or so before we wrap up. Would you like to send a message up to the International Space Station, and maybe some final thoughts to our students in Ecuador, USA and Scotland who are watching live?
Well, I wish I could be up there. I know several of the astronauts up there personally. I know we're doing a big swap out this month on the International Space Station. Mark Vande Hei is launching tomorrow on the Soyuz. It's such an exciting time to be on the space station with these new spaceships and just pushing the frontier. I wish them the best of luck. I know several are coming back very soon. Congratulations on a long visit into space, and Godspeed.
Okay, well, what a fantastic way to wrap up. I'm going to end it there, and thank you very much indeed, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. Pleasure. That's been wonderful speaking to you live, saluted by an astronaut. Hey guys, we're getting a real treat today. Thank you so much, Greg. And we are 1 minute away from the main event, which is the live link with the International Space Station. So Greg, do stick around and watch it with us if you're able to. We are going to hand over to NASA Live. We'll be able to stream it through this platform, so you don't need to go anywhere. We're going to switch over to the stream right now, and it should begin in the next couple of minutes. So let's go and see what's happening over at NASA Live.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, we are ready for the event.
Houston ACR, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Houston ACR. How do you hear me?
Houston ACR, we have you loud and clear.
Space Institute at Rice University engages in research, technology development, and education. With colleagues at Scottish Enterprise and the Guayaquil Space Society, we have brought together students from Houston, Scotland, and Ecuador who are excited to talk to the International Space Station and for the collaboration among our schools going forward. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce the Right Honourable Nicola Sturgeon, MSP, First Minister of Scotland, for some opening remarks.
I want to say hello to all of the young people who are taking part in this uplink. I'm very grateful to the Rice Space Institute, NASA and all of the other partners who've helped make it possible. Today you all have a chance to hear directly from the crew of Expedition 64 about the research they're carrying out and about what it's like for people from different countries to work together for the common good. It's a brilliant opportunity and I hope you find it inspiring. And I know you'll all want to get on with the questions straight away. So let's move on to the first one.
Hello, my name's Cameron Kelman. I'm age 15 and I'm a student at Bathgate Academy in Scotland. My question for NASA is, how do you mentally and physically prepare for a long-term space mission? Thank you.
Hey, that is an excellent question because it does take a lot of preparation to get ready for a space flight. On the mental side, I don't know. You just really have to be ready to go. You have to know that you're going to be gone for your friends and family for at least 6 months, usually longer than that because we go into quarantine ahead of time. So you just need to be ready, and everybody prepares for that differently. Physically, you've got to be in shape to be able to do spacewalks, to be able to take the loads of launching and landing. And so we actually work with athletic trainers before we leave Earth to make sure we're in the best physical shape we can be before we get up here.
Hello, my name is Anela Franco. I am 14 years old. It's a privilege to ask this question in representation of my school, Unidad Educativa Javier, in Guayaquil, Ecuador. Once you have looked at our planet from space, what do you think about humanity's effort to live a sustainable life? Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. That is a wonderful question, and we're really excited to be speaking to you as well. Our planet certainly is beautiful. We can see it. We have some windows here in an area called the cupola, and we're pretty busy during the workday, but when we get a chance, we like to look down. Often this is maybe at night after all of our duties are done, and we see the Earth is such a beautiful and peaceful place, but we're also very struck by how fragile it is. There's just a very thin atmosphere. The planet looks like it's this beautiful, bright planet, but it's alone. It's got really the dark cold of space surrounding it. And so I think it helps us think a lot more carefully about this is the only place that we've got. This is where humanity lives. And we do get a strong sense that we need to take very good care of it. We're interconnected, and it is a fragile oasis.
Hi, my name is Megan, and my question goes out to any and all astronauts. How does food preparation differ in outer space, and are there any extra measures you need to take in order to ensure proper nutrition?
Oh, that is a great question, Megan. Nutrition is important, and you are absolutely right. Nutrition is important on the ground, and it's very important in space, too, because what we eat can affect how healthy we can remain up here. While we're in space, we are constantly losing bone density, so we need a way to keep our bones strong. Some of that's through exercise. A lot of that's through nutrition. So how do we do it? Well, we've got teams of people on the ground that actually prepare all our food for us and send it up to the space station. So we depend on them to make sure that our food is nutritionally sound so we can eat it up here. Preparing food up here is pretty simple. We just heat it up and eat it.
Hi, my name is Leah Mowbray and I attend Lockhill Academy in Scotland. And my question is, after completing a space mission and returning home, how long does it take you to recover physically?
That's a really good question. We're thinking about this now because all of us are getting close to the end of our mission. It takes about 45 days to do our complete physical rehabilitation. Really, we start feeling better in about the first week or two, but we have to relearn how to do a lot of things. So when we get home, we can kind of walk, but it doesn't look very graceful. And we lose a lot of things like our proprioception, our sense of balance, even just our ability to support our weight. Since we're so used to floating, we have to kind of learn how to walk again. So this takes quite a bit of time, and it actually it takes a lot of effort at the gym. We do a lot of different kinds of rehabilitation exercises. We're feeling good after about 2 weeks, and we're really back to our normal Earth-based selves after 45 days.
Hello, my name is Leo. I attend Baylor College of Medicine Academy at James D. Ryan in Texas. My question is, could a disease ever evolve in space, and could it reach the Earth?
Shannon gave this to me because I'm the virologist. That is a really good question. So we go into quarantine, we go into isolation before we launch. And the way that most diseases transmit is between people or between animals to people. So since we're isolated up here during our entire space mission, we're probably not going to have a disease that we don't bring with us. So we screen all the astronauts before they launch to make sure that they're healthy. You can have something called latent virus reactivation, where a virus that we carry within ourselves starts to become more prominent since we're a little bit more immunosuppressed, and Shannon's saying like chicken pox. But it's very unlikely that any new viruses would evolve up here because we don't have any other people besides the few that are up here, and we don't have any animals. And that's really how viruses evolve on Earth, and that's how they transmit on Earth. So because we're separate, until we start having hundreds or thousands of people in space, we're not likely to have any new viruses evolve up here.
Hi, my name is Maider. I go to Bulgrim Primary in P3B. My question is, how much packaging does your food need in space?
I am sorry, I did not catch that question. We don't always have good uplink sound. Is there any way you can repeat it?
Station, this is Houston ACR. The question was, how much packaging does your food need in space?
How much packaging does our food need in space? That is an excellent question, because actually that is something we are always complaining about. Our food has too much packaging, we think, and it creates a lot of trash that we have to deal with up here. So I think we would like it if we had less packaging. Right now, we have dehydrated food that comes up. It's in a plastic bag that we can inject the water into to make our meals. And that plastic bag is wrapped in something else. So if we could get down to at least one bag instead of two, that'd be better. And if we could do something that it would actually degrade as opposed to just plastic trash, yeah, maybe we need to figure out how to do composting up here. That would be even better.
Hi, my name is Serena Muñoz, and I attend John Living Academy in Guayaquil, Ecuador. My question is, because of lockdowns that paused transportation and industry severely during the pandemic, what changes have you noticed across the Equator?
That's a really good question. Because we circle the globe every 90 minutes, we can see all parts of the world. And when I launched, there was already the pandemic going on. And I'm a virologist, everybody's been hearing about this, but I was really thinking about it. We did have a very interesting study where we were taking photographs of cities at night, and we were trying to see if human movement in these cities was changed in the pandemic. And I think they have seen that there's differences in the cities before the pandemic versus now. Obviously, people are moving around a lot less. So we can't see too much at the individual person level. About the biggest thing we can see is things like cars and buildings, but we can certainly see lights. And we have noticed, if you look at things like commercial air travel, very early on, the number of flights going across, we can see the trails that the airplanes leave. That's reduced, and then some of the lights in the city are reduced because of the pandemic.
Hi, my name is Lorna Nails, and I'm an 8th grade student at Baylor College of Medicine Biotech Academy at Rusk. And my question is, what was the most surprising aspect of taking a spacewalk?
We just did one.
That's a good question. We did 5 spacewalks on this mission. It was a lot. Each spacewalk takes a lot of effort by the whole team. So it's not just the people doing the spacewalk. This is everybody on the ground involved, and then there's hundreds of people on the ground that help out and on board, of course, also. The effort involved is pretty significant. We plan for it for weeks and months when we're training, and the ground teams plan for years. Some of the harder things to overcome are just being in the vacuum of space. We don't train, we train underwater, but we really don't train in vacuum. And the other really hard thing is that it's night. We go day-night cycles, and so all of our training on the ground we do during the day, but we have to get used to doing a lot of work at night where we have very little visibility. One of the cool things is we do get to see the planet through just our visor. So we're always paying attention and being careful, but we do get to take a few moments to look at the planet and see how beautiful it is.
Hi, my name's Robin and I attend East Bank Academy in Glasgow. My question is, before your first trip to the International Space Station, you would have studied space in great depth. Now that you're experiencing it firsthand, is it what you imagined it to be? And if so, does it still amaze you?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do spend a lot of time studying about space, but it's really hard to adequately capture what it's like to be up here. You can kind of imagine what it's like to float all the time, but until you're doing it 24 hours a day, it doesn't really meet your expectations. So up here, I would say, one, it's a lot more interesting, a lot more fun to float all the time, but it's a lot more challenging than you might think because you're always having to find ways to stabilize yourself, and you really, really have to keep up with all your stuff because if you don't put it someplace very carefully, it is going to float away and you're going to spend 2 days looking for it. So yes, it's kind of like what we expect, but not entirely, and it's a great place to be.
I am Valeria Sara. I'm 15 years old. It is an honor to contact you from the UEJJ in Guayaquil, Ecuador. The question we would like to ask is the following. How important is it to get schools involved in space education? And how can our school help promote this educational approach? Thank you very much. We look forward to your response.
Thank you. That is a wonderful question. We think it's incredibly important. Shannon and I are doing this event with all of you because we think this is so incredibly important to get young people involved in space and space science. There's a lot of things that we do up here that actually students can participate. We do things like CubeSats. We actually launch satellites from the International Space Station, and university students can work on these. We have projects that high school students can work on. So there's a great project. It's called Hunch that actually some local area high schools participate in. I was just using one of their items today. They design things that are going to be useful to astronauts and they fly them up onto the space station. So it's I think one of the most important things that Space Station can do is serve as an outreach tool to young people. And certainly if you're interested in space science, you can go to the nasa.gov website, and there are all kinds of projects that your school can do, that you can do with your friends, and that you can get people in other schools interested in. At any grade level, I would definitely recommend checking it out. And if you get a chance, fly us an experiment up to Space Station. We would love to work on it.
Hi, I'm Vian. I'm 6 years old. I'm in elementary school, and I want to ask you, does your hair get tangled in space?
Does our hair get tangled in space? That is an excellent question. Maybe not as much on the ground. I don't know. We don't have the wind up here, so that's not going to tangle our hair. But look at Kate's hair. It just floats around. I keep mine in a ponytail, so it doesn't get stuck on Velcro and get into things. But your hair can be a lot of fun up here for sure.
My name is Grace, and I attend Holy Family Primary near Glasgow, Scotland. My question is, do you have to keep a record of the space debris in orbit, and can it be dangerous to the space station?
That's a really good question. It's actually a really important one. We do have issues with space debris. So when we launch things, for example, rocket fairings can sometimes fall back to Earth, but sometimes they stay in orbit. when satellites are at the end of their service life, they can stay in orbit. Sometimes they collide and they make a lot of space debris. So this is a concern. There's a lot of people that monitor space debris on the ground, and if we have an object that's big enough, we'll make sure that the space station avoids that so we don't have a possible collision. But it's hard to track all of these objects. And so this is something, if you guys are interested in what the future of space is, learning about space debris and how to avoid space debris, how to plan for it, how to make sure that we build our satellites in a sustainable and renewable fashion so that we plan for those satellites to come back to the Earth, to burn up, and not to litter the atmosphere and to litter the orbit with space debris. So there's a whole field out there. We have a lot of people working on it, but we definitely can use some more smart people thinking about this.
Greetings. I'm Santiago Kuhn from Unidad Educativa Javier in Guayaquil, Ecuador. I'm 12 years old. I would like to ask the following question to the astronauts. How can experiments such as the one conducted with the seeds will contribute with our goal of living in space? It is a pleasure to contact you.
Houston ACR, can you help?
Station, this is Houston ACR. The question is, how can experiments such as the one conducted with the seeds contribute to our goal of living in space?
Yes, seeds. Very good question. It is so important for us to learn how to grow plants in space, because if we're going to take long trips, say, to Mars, we're not going to want to eat packaged food the whole time. We're going to need a way to grow our own food. And so we've actually done a lot of experiments up here. We've got some plants going right now. So we're looking at how do you adequately water the plants? How do you get plants the nutrition they need so they can grow properly and produce food for us? So it is amazingly important, and it's just something that we're only taking the baby steps at now, but we really need to figure it out so we can get more places in our solar system with people.
Hi, my name is Sasha Mackay and I attend Preston Academy in Scotland. My question is, do you have a time zone? Does it affect your everyday lifestyle or your sleeping pattern? Thank you.
Station, this
and
is
Houston ACR. Sorry.
Station, this is Houston ACR. The question is, what is your time zone and how does it affect your sleeping pattern and daily routine?
Thank you. Yes, we are on Greenwich Mean Time, so we're about London time. We picked that time early on in the space station days. We've got control centers all over the world, and so we had to pick a time artificially to be on. And this is about halfway in between Houston and Moscow times, and so it's staffed 24/7 in all these different control centers. So we kind of stay on this sort of European London time zone, and we shift when we get up here, and we just stay on that unless we have a visiting vehicle coming. If we have something docking to the space station, we might need to get up in the middle of the night because of the way it launches and orbital phasing. We have 16 sunrises and sunsets a day. Mostly we're actually inside, though, and we have artificial light. This can affect your circadian rhythm negatively. One of the new things we've done recently is put lights up that have different wavelengths, and so we can adjust it to have less blue light in the evening when we're trying to sleep and more blue light in the morning, and that helps some of our circadian rhythm adapt. But it is one of the big challenges that we have in space.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Davis, and I'm a student at Michael E. DeBakey High School for Health Professions. And my question is, how do astronauts from multiple countries collaborate in spaceflight for scientific advancement?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. How do we collaborate up here? Well, this is the International Space Station, so one of the ways that we do it is by having international astronauts. Right now, our crew is composed of 4 American astronauts, 1 Japanese astronaut, and 2 Russian astronauts, and we all work together to accomplish the science up here. So, for example, right now, one of the partnerships that we have for the International Space Station is the European Space Agency. Well, there is no European astronaut up here, so we work with the European experiments to make sure that their science is accomplished. If, say, in the future we don't have a Japanese astronaut, well, we will all, whoever else is up here, will do the Japanese experiments. So we work together to accomplish great things.
Well, that was brilliant. My name is David Alexander. I'm the director of the Space Institute at Rice University in Houston, Texas. And I'd like to thank NASA, Dr. Rubins, Colonel Hopkins, and of course all of our young participants who made today such a special event. Thank you all.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
Wow, that was very cool. Wouldn't you say?
I thought that was absolutely incredible. They've got great Wi-Fi.
They should have got better Wi-Fi than I have right now.
Greg, it's way better than it was when I was up there, I'll tell you.
How did that make you feel, Greg, seeing your colleagues and your friends up there, and did it bring back good memories?
Smiles and some emotion. You know, we've worked together for decades, and in fact, Kate and I were office mates when she first came to the astronaut office, and she was so capable. It's funny, as the new astronauts join the astronaut corps, you realize that the astronauts keep getting better and better. I'd never get selected to be an astronaut these days, but she's super smart, super personable, and very dedicated, as you could hear. And the answers were just spot on. I was very impressed with them.
That was amazing. And it was so great to see Shannon, because we were expecting Mike Hopkins, which is why David thanked him at the end. And then there was a last minute change last night, in fact. So we were thrilled because Shannon is a Rice alumni. So absolutely perfect. We were so pleased to see her. And how great to see two women, right? This is, I mean, only 65 women have been into space, and we had two of them on the space station talking to us.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, the classes lately have been 50-50 men and women, as it should be. And so, those ladies, the whole crew, just spectacular, extraordinary individuals.
Yeah. Gosh, Murray, are you desperate to get up there now? Is that you, right, joining the Space Corps?
I did hear that point about lacking a European, so, you know.
There you go. There's your spot. Well, Isa is recruiting right now, right? What do you reckon? Do you think he's got a chance, Greg?
I think he does. He's a pretty smart guy. You're young. I'd say go for it. Put your hat in the ring.
Well, I think that more exciting opportunities are for our audience around the world, those people who've asked those fantastic questions. And it's great to see all that enthusiasm, people dialing in from Ecuador, USA and Scotland to ask those fantastic questions. I think that's where our next great hope is for space exploration.
Yeah,
those questions were amazing. And those are the future space explorers. They're the space generation. Their entire lives, we've been living and working on the International Space Station, unlike when I was a kid. And so it'd be exciting to be a kid. And from the excellence of their questions, some of them are going to go to space, I'm certain.
That is an incredible thought, actually, that some of the people who are watching this, some of our young people watching this event, may well go into space themselves.
We might be talking to them on the space station in a few years. Who knows? Well, listen, we have another surprise. As if we didn't have enough excitement today, we've been joined by Greg, our token male astronaut, actually, because we had Bonnie to start the show. We had the two amazing women on the space station, and we have a fourth female astronaut joining us now. We have Serena Auňón-Chancellor, who has been so kind, and she has recorded answers to some of the questions that we didn't quite have time for on the space station. So we're going to run them just now, and hopefully some of the children who didn't hear their questions answered live on the space station will have them answered now by Serena. So we'll roll the video now. And Greg, thanks so much for joining us. It's been great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hello, my name is Nathan Carpenter. I attend Lim Elementary in Spring, Texas. My question is, what do you do all day in space?
Hi, Nathan.
So what do we do all day in space? It's so many different things. We get up every morning, we brush our teeth, we eat breakfast, and then we get to work on science. And it could be science with the human body, science with materials, physics, you name it, we're doing it. We also do exercise every day to keep our bones and our muscles healthy. We call our families. We've got a special computer phone that we can use to call our families. And believe it or not, before you know it, the day is done and we are so tired, it's time to go to bed.
Hi, my name is Victoria and I attend St Andrews Secondary School in Glasgow. My question is, what do you do for entertainment on board the International Space Station?
Hi, Victoria. So, entertainment on board ISS, one of my favorite things to do, actually the crew, was movie night on Saturday night, and we all got to take turns picking the movie. We also had special movie candy that we would fly up, but we all got our jammies on, we got some hot tea or some hot chocolate and our movie candy, and watched movies together as a crew.
Hi, my name is Stella Carlton. I'm a student at Michael E. DeBakey High School for the Health Professions, and my question is for Dr. Rubin. So in regards to DNA sequencing in space, are there any challenges associated with the process in regards to the low Earth gravity setting?
Hi, Stella. Great questions about the challenges microgravity poses with DNA sequencing. Honestly, one of the biggest issues we have with any science experiment we do on board ISS is restraint of our tools, especially when we're dealing with maybe fine liquids or very small pieces of equipment. I found that it takes us a long time to actually set up the experiment. I did some RNA sequencing on orbit just to make sure you don't lose anything. Plus, it's also important to think about how fluids act in orbit, and due to surface tension forces, fluids act a little differently. They tend to stick. You can't utilize gravity. Sometimes if you need fluid to get into a well, you're having to use a centrifuge-like motion to make that happen. But those are some of our biggest challenges.
Hi, I'm Emily Alley and I attend Seven Lakes High School in Texas. My question is, if there was another station orbiting Mars, what would be its focus? Thank you.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for your question. So I think if we had a station orbiting Mars, the goal would be to perform planetary exploration. So for example, we'd have our folks living up on the station. How many trips could we get to and from that station to the surface to begin exploration of the red planet? You know, we've been on Earth for a long time and almost every corner of Earth has been explored. Certainly the oceans at least, that might be a different story. But when it comes to Mars, there's so much we have to look at, so much ground we have to cover. I think the very first priority would be to see how many trips we can make down to the surface, how long can we survive on the surface, and actually start building a Martian habitat.
Hi, my name is Dora Halder, and I'm a student at Michael E. DeBakey High School for Health Professions in Houston, Texas. My question is for Dr. Rubins. Since you have a strong background in microbiology and have done extensive and fascinating research in virology, can you please explain how the coronavirus has affected space exploration and studies investigating COVID-related changes in the Earth system?
Hi, Dora. Great question on COVID. Honestly, COVID has changed the way we do spaceflight operations completely, but mostly in how we look at quarantine, which is that pre-launch time frame where we try and keep astronauts safe and try to prevent a virus like COVID from going to the space station. So many women and men on the ground, scientists, doctors, nurses, everybody have had to figure out new ways to keep the crew safe, keep the crew in masks when they do training, all the way leading up to flight to make sure that we don't bring COVID to the International Space Station.
Hola, mi nombre es Ashley Ramirez and I attend TD Aerospace Academy in Houston, Texas. My question is, what challenges did you face while becoming an astronaut? Thank you.
Hi, Jaslyn. You know, I think every astronaut faces challenges along the way, certainly getting into the astronaut corps and then even while training. I think the biggest challenge all of us face is that maybe we think at some point we're not good enough to become an astronaut and how hard it is and that our chances are really low. And you just have to push that out of your mind completely. And if you believe that you can become an astronaut or anything in life, you can achieve it.
Hi NASA, hi astronauts, I'm Jodie and my question is, where do you get your water from when you're in space? And do you get to shower?
Hi Jody, two great questions. So it'd be really easy if we could just carry all of our water to and from the space station from the ground, but that would be really expensive over time. So we have a special system called the water reclamation system that gathers all moisture and even takes our own urine, and we process that into the next day's water. Sounds disgusting, but it's true. No, we don't have a shower on board the space station. That would be great if we did, because a shower feels so good. But we have special cleaning cloths that come in a packet, and we instill some hot water, and there's a little bit of soap, and then we pull that towel out and kind of scrub ourselves down, and we feel pretty clean.
Hi, my name is Aiden, and I'm from Buffalo Creek Elementary in Houston, Texas. My question is, have you ever had an experience where something went wrong on the International Space Station, and how did you fix it?
Hi, Aiden. Things go wrong and things break on board the space station all the time. So one of the best examples I can think of during our mission is we actually found a very small hole inside our Soyuz spacecraft. That's the spacecraft that carried us to the space station. So we actually had to patch that hole with some special materials because that vehicle had to get us back down safely to the ground. So you'd be surprised all the different repair materials we carry on board the space station to fix things in case they break.
Hi, my name is Millie and I'm from Houston Academy in Glasgow. The question I would like to ask is, in the rocket during takeoff, what were your thoughts? And what is the coolest thing you've seen so far?
Hi, Millie. So I have to say that when that rocket lit, you knew you were going somewhere really, really fast. So it was super exciting, but a little bit scary all at the same time. And then really the coolest thing we get to see when we first get up there is the beautiful Earth. Almost the first time you go into the space station, you quickly go towards the cupola, which is our window to the Earth, and you get to gaze out and see the Earth in all its glory. And that beats everything, almost everything you see on board the International Space Station. What a great view.
Hi, I'm Medea from Ball Green Primary School P6B, and my question today is, what do you think the main qualities are that you need to become an astronaut?
So what are the main qualities that you need to become an astronaut? Honestly, you need to be a good person, a hardworking person, able to work in a team. You can be a leader and a follower, depending on what the task is. And you gotta have a pretty good sense of humor.
Hola, mi nombre es Jonathan Álvarez, and I attend DD Aerospace Academy in Houston, Texas. My question is, has someone from Houston has made you interested in space?
Hi, Jonathan. So believe it or not, almost all the astronauts for NASA live and work in Houston. So we make things and do cool things in space all the time.
Hi, my name is Madeline Smith and I'm from Hindon Secondary. My question is, what's the maximum amount of time you're allowed to stay in space for and why?
Hi, Madeline. Great question. So there really is no maximum time that you can spend in space. I don't think we've reached that yet. So a lot of us spend about 6 to 7 months on board the International Space Station right now. Some have even flown up to a year, but we don't have many of those. But the interesting thing to think about is, how long is a trip to Mars going to be? 6 to 9 months there, 6 to 9 months back, depending on how long you stay on the surface. That could be a really long trip. So I think some of the limiting factors are bone loss, muscle loss. Are there any changes in your brain? How about your eyes? Plus, how good is your spacecraft? Got to make sure nothing breaks or that you're at least able to fix it.
Hello astronauts, I am Adi. My question is, what are your free time activities?
Hi, Addie. Free time activities. So we love our Saturday night movie nights with the whole crew. We love taking pictures out of the cupola. I really liked being in the cupola looking out at the Earth during a night pass because you could see thunderstorms roll over the continents and you could see all the lightning and everything from up above. And then of course in our free time, we always call our families to tell them we love them.
Hi there, my name is David Zohr. I am a student at the Michael E. DeBakey High School for Health Professions, and Dr. Rubins, your work in developing therapies on viruses such as Ebola and the Lassa viruses is astonishing to say the least. My question is, how does the methodology of your lab work change in space? And how does the issue of sample preservation impact your on-orbit work, considering that the novel coronavirus might be researched in space?
Hi, David. Yeah, so work inside your laboratory changes dramatically in space. We are limited to certain areas when we're dealing with things like cells or cultures. I hope we don't have to work with the novel coronavirus in space. That would be a fairly virulent pathogen. We do work with certain bacteria, however, and we have ways to keep ourselves isolated from that bacteria. And those are new methods that we're developing all the time. We usually do that work in the microgravity sciences glove box. Could we, at some point, advance to working with viruses in space, or maybe in another sort of habitat? Absolutely, I think so.
Hi, my question is, how many sunrises do you see a day from the International Space Station?
Hi, Lois. So we see about 16 sunrises a day on board the International Space Station, and that's because we orbit the Earth every 90 minutes. We're traveling at 17,500 miles an hour. Pretty darn fast. We fly over continents really quickly, and if you're lucky, you get to catch a sunrise or a sunset, which is just as beautiful.
Hi, my name is Lorna Dales, and I'm an 8th grade student at Baylor College of Medicine Biotech Academy at Rusk. And my question is, what was the coolest thing you ever did up there? Like, what completely took you back and stunned you?
Hi, Lauren Ann. I loved your question because you said, what stunned you on board the space station? Honestly, when a cargo vehicle comes up and we have to capture it with the robot arm and then pull it into station, that is the neatest thing to see outside the cupola. An entire vehicle coming up about 30 meters from the space station, very close, very big, and now we got to capture it and bring all that cargo on board.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and these are my 2 questions. So my first one is, has there ever been a situation that felt dangerous? And my second one is, does space have a smell?
Hi, Sarah. So we'll start with the second question. Does space have a smell? Interestingly, when we first opened the hatch from the Soyuz to the space station, I smelled like a burnt electrical smell. And it was what Drew Feustel told me, because he was the crew member that greeted me, was that is typically the smell that we can detect when spacesuits come in from a spacewalk, when we open hatches for the first time. But it was a very distinct smell. I will never forget it. And then the first question that you had, if did anything dangerous really happen, our Soyuz actually had a small hole in it, which caused a leak or a depressurization on board the ISS. We successfully repaired that leak, but all of our flight controllers on the ground detected the pressure drop, and then alerted us that morning so we could quickly use our ultrasonic leak detector and find the leak itself.
Hi, I'm Zia. I'm 6 years old and I go to Lovett Elementary School. How old were you when you first wanted to be an astronaut?
Hi, Zia. Thank you for your question. So I think I was about 8 years old when I wanted to be an astronaut. And I remember watching shuttles launch over and over and over and just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And that I wanted to be there up in space as a scientist, doing experiments, and I could see myself living and working in low Earth orbit.
Hi, my name is Ewan. I go to Prestwick Academy, South Ayrshire, Scotland. My question for you is, what does the Earth look like from the International Space Station? Is there any notable features, and what do you think?
Hi, Ewan. So what does the Earth look like from space? It's actually pretty amazing. I remember the first time we entered the space station and went to the cupola, the first thought out of my mind was, wow, we are really close to the Earth's surface. A lot closer than I thought. It's not this big ball that seems distant. We're very close, and that makes sense with where the ISS orbits. So it sounds a little funny, but that was my first thought when I saw the Earth from space.
Hi, my name is Ben, and I attend Prestwick Academy in Scotland. My question is, what do you think about SpaceX and the advancements that have been made while you have been in orbit?
Hi, Ben. I really like your background. So SpaceX has done some really neat things while Dr. Rubins has been on orbit. It certainly delivered the next crew safe and sound, and they're working with her right now up there on all the science experiments. So launches and landings have already been successful, which is awesome because we need SpaceX and other companies to succeed when taking our astronauts to and from the space station.
Hi, I am Kai from Ball Green Primary P6B. And my question for the astronaut is, how do you get the oxygen onto the space station?
Hi, Kai. Great question. So the way we get oxygen on board the space station is through a process called electrolysis, which uses energy from the solar panels. And we basically are able to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And then that is quickly followed by, we can actually store oxygen in pressure tanks, and we do have that as well. But electrolysis is the main way we have oxygen on board the ISS.
Hi, my name is Lorna Dales, and I'm an 8th grade student at Baylor College of Medicine Biotech Academy at Rusk. And my question is, what did you bring with you in space?
Hi, Lauren Ann again. So what did I bring with me in space? Well, I brought a lot of things. I brought a lot of pictures of my family, even my pets. And interestingly, I brought a back scratcher. It's really handy to have when you've got those itches that just can't be reached.
My name is Oliver and I attend Holy Family Primary near Glasgow, Scotland. My question is, what was it like to finish the battery upgrades after 8 years of development and 14 spacewalks?
Hi, Oliver. So yeah, it took a lot of spacewalks to finish the upgrading of the batteries. And spacewalking is probably one of the most dangerous things we do on board the space station, because we have to make sure the suits are working perfectly, the procedures are good, and then we have to make sure the astronauts go out, do their work, and come back in safely. The great part about that is this was an upgrade the ISS desperately needed, and so everybody's really happy we got them done successfully.
My name is Elizabeth, and I attend Holy Family Primary near Glasgow, Scotland. My question is, what vaccinations did you have to take before going on your mission to the International Space Station? And do viruses survive in space?
Hi, Elizabeth. So great question. We do get vaccines before we fly to space. Ones that you're familiar with, like chickenpox vaccine, and maybe ones you haven't heard of, like shingles. And that's because sometimes viruses can reactivate when astronauts fly in space. Now, do viruses survive in space? It'd be really, really difficult for the virus to stay alive, hardly at all. It usually requires nicer temperatures, that's for sure, and some atmospheric pressure to survive. So I think that would be difficult. But if a virus made its way to the space station, it could be pretty happy for some time.
Hi, my name is Alex Hammond, and I attend Prestwick Academy in Scotland. My question is, why can you not see stars in space?
Hi, Alex. So believe it or not, you can see stars from space. We saw the entire Milky Way galaxy from the cupola. It was one of our favorite things to do at night. We don't have any light pollution. There's no atmosphere. The stars are so clear, and we can see them so much better from space than we can on Earth.
Hi, my name is Zara McFarlane, and I'm from Scotland. My question is, what is it like readjusting to the Earth's gravity when you come back from space?
Hi, Zara. Let me tell you, it is pretty tough readjusting to Earth's gravity once you land after being in space for 6 or 7 months. You feel very heavy. Your head really doesn't know where it's at in position. You kind of feel sick to your stomach too, because all of a sudden your inner ear is getting all this gravity where it didn't see it before. So the first 24 hours are pretty rough, but once you quickly remind your body where it's at, then you begin to walk again normally. Your head begins to feel normal, and it takes months, well, I say weeks, to rehab. It takes some time. And so just think, the longer we are as we head off towards Mars and come back, how long that might take to readjust when we get back home.
Hi, I'm Sinead, I'm from Glasgow, and my question is, how fast does the rocket need to go to escape Earth's gravitational pull?
Hi, Sinead. So you're asking about something called escape velocity for that rocket to actually enter orbit. And so you need to be traveling about 11 kilometers per second, that fast, in order to escape Earth's gravity and make it into orbit.
Well, I hope we've managed to answer most of the questions. It was a lot to get through, as I'm sure you can appreciate, but fabulous insight there from a range of astronauts, from 3 female astronauts actually, and we had Bonnie earlier, and then we had the joy of being joined by Greg Johnson live, who answered some of your questions live. So all that remains for me to do is to thank everyone for joining us. Lord David Willetts, a real treat to have Lord David Willetts on the show alongside Professor David Alexander, Robert Allion from Ecuador, and my co-host Murray, who is a space expert, for all that I wind him up. He's doing amazing work in Scotland as well, aren't you, Murray?
I've got a fantastic team in the university and at Space Intelligence, and it's all down to them, really. But I hope you agree that it's been a hugely inspirational event, and it's been fantastic to hear from so many experts, get that live connection, and hear about life on the International Space Station.
Absolutely. And we have recorded all of it. I know a few people were asking in the chat box if they could watch it again afterwards, maybe replay some of that information. We have recorded it all. I'll be tweeting the link. I'm at Kim McAllister. All our sponsors will as well. So make sure you follow at Kim McAllister, at Space Intelli, at Connect Comms, and at Rice University on Twitter. They'll all share the link with you, and we will email it out to all our registrants as well.
And so we should say all credit to Professor David Alexander at the Rice Space Institute for orchestrating this event. Thank you, David. And thank you, Kim, for producing this event. I've thoroughly enjoyed being part of it.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I've had so much fun as well. And I can't wait to start recording our third podcast series. We're going to call it Great British Liftoff. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. Murray and I will be interviewing all sorts of cool space people from across the UK.
Yes, I really cannot wait. But for now, thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to see you all and to do this. It's a very, very exciting event together. I hope some of you watching in the audience will go on to work in the space industry. It's an absolutely fantastic place to work. And so take some inspiration from this, and good luck for all of your futures.
Absolutely. And a last word to David. I think it's only fair that you have the last word on this event.
Well, I mean, I've got my I Am Brew t-shirt on, so I think I deserve something. No, this is fantastic. And Greg, thanks for joining us. It was good to, I guess it was only last week I saw you, but it's good to see you after so long.
Yeah, it was great to be here, and I dropped off for a second and made it back. So
well, good. I'm glad you were able to do that. And I think, I mean, it just shows you the excitement of the next generation, but not only that, the excitement of the people who've been there and done it. I mean, Greg is still super enthusiastic about space exploration. He works every day to make the next steps a goal, and then from all the folks that we've heard from. So I hope we can, with Robert and our friends around the world, that we can make something of this and build some stronger connections. So Kim, fantastic. Thank you. Murray, as usual, thank you. And I'll see you on your podcast, or at least I'll be listening to you.
Excellent. Muchas gracias a todos, and goodbye for now.